Good morning, my dear students of class 5th. Missing you all and always remembering your beautiful smiling faces. I know you all love to hear stories. And why not? It transports us to a beautiful land with wonderful characters. Once we are involved in a story, we absolutely forget about the real world. So now I would like you to take out your English textbook, page 57, Meeting Miss Trotwood. This story was written by Charles Dickens. He was one of the famous English writer. David Copperfield was his favorite novel and David was his favorite character. First, I would like to narrate the story and later on I will help you with new words and their meanings. So let's get started. Now listen carefully. There was a little boy called David. He had lost his father, but he was living happily with his mother. But he could not remain happy for a long time. His mother married Mr. Murdstone, who was not at all a kind man. He was he having an unkind sister. They both came and stayed with David and his mother. Can you imagine? Here comes the saddest part of the story. David's mother passed away and now he had to stay with Mr. Murdstone and his sister. They started ill-treating him very badly. Poor little David was sent to a factory to work hard instead of going to a proper school. Yes, children, I would like to say parents are irreplaceable. They love us selflessly and always fulfill our needs. Just think for a moment how many times we pester our parents to get us new things. Your mommy is always busy in the kitchen preparing Maggi, pasta, cakes and whatnot. But here, no one was there for little David even to fulfill his basic needs. He was very upset with his life and missing his parents all the time. Now, David decided to go to his only living relative, his aunt, Betsy Trotwood. Yes, all the children love their aunts because aunts always fulfill their demands and get goodies, right? Anyway, finally David left London and after walking for a long distance, he reached her house. By the time he reached there, do you know, children, what was his condition? His shoes were completely worn out. His hat was crushed and battered. His shirt and trousers were stained with sweat and grime. All types of grass were also stuck on his clothes. On the whole, he was a fearful sight. Here comes a beautiful phrase. My hair had known no comb and no brush since I left London. That shows he was in a terrible state by the time he reached his aunt's place. When he stood there, he saw a lady coming out of the house and instantly he knew that she was his aunt because his mother had described her many a times. But as soon as his aunt saw him, she shouted, go along, no boys here. They are not allowed in my garden." She could not recognize him, but He was in a terrible state and he politely introduced himself. Aunt, I am your nephew. The aunt was so shocked that she sat down in the garden path. But again, David convinced his aunt that I am Copperfield, David Copperfield of Blunderstone in Suffolk. Blunderstone, Suffolk is a place where David was born. He again reminded her that she had come when he was born. Then he said his aunt about all the mistreatment done by Mr. Murdstone and his sister towards him. He was so upset that he could not go on further and sat down on the garden path with tears in his eyes. The heart of the aunt melted immediately. She took him inside the house. And do you know, children, what was the first thing she did? She gave him some strange tonics. Tonics. It is a liquid medicine which will make a person healthy. Then she made him have a hot bath and gave him a shirt and a pair of trousers belonging to Mr. Dick, who was a very kind man living in Aunt's cottage. Then Aunt Betsy fed him and made him sleep on the sofa comfortably wrapped around with two shawls. Aunt Betsy loved him a lot and equally David respected her. Meanwhile, Aunt wrote a letter to Mr. Murdstone about David. Mr. Murdstone and his sister came immediately to Miss Trotwood. As soon as Mr. Murdstone and his sister came to Miss Betsy Trotwood's house, the aunt scolded him firmly for mistreating David a lot. Finally, Mr. Murdstone said David to come back with him. Otherwise, the doors of his house will always be closed for him. But do you know, children, will David ever go back to Mr. Murdstone? He immediately caught hold of his aunt, hugged her and said, I will never leave Miss Betsy Trotwood, my favorite aunt. His aunt hugged him back and said, Mr. Murdstone, let me have a chance with this boy and I would like to take care of him. Then she said Mr. Murdstone to leave her house immediately. She was very upset because he had mistreated David. Now, Miss Betsy Trotwood decided to become the guardian of David. She renamed him as Trotwood Copperfield. David was very happy with his new name. Later on, do you know, children, what his aunt decided? She decided that David should have a proper education at Canterbury. She wanted to have him a proper education, but in Canterbury school there was no room for the boarders. Later on, she spoke to her old lawyer, Mr. Wickfield, and arranged David to stay over there. Meanwhile, Mr. Wickfield also had a daughter named Agnes, the age same of David, and they both got along very well. David was pleased to go to a new school, though at first he felt very strange. He could not make friends easily, but later on he started liking the school. He made a lot of friends and enjoyed with them. He was very grateful towards his aunt from the core of his heart. When aunt left, she just said, Trot, my dear, never be mean to anything, never be false and never be cruel.
Right.
And with tears in her eyes, she said goodbye to Trot and I will come back soon to visit you again. Yes, children, we should never be mean or cruel to anybody in this world, though it may be friends, parents, or teachers, maybe animals also. We should always love them. Remember, children, you all are very fortunate to have wonderful parents, friends, and teachers. Some new words for you to listen and to know their meanings. Fortunately, luckily, battered, shabby and damaged with use. Nephew, sister's son. Tonics, liquid medicine which makes you feel healthy. Adoption, the action of taking up someone. Fortnight, 2 weeks of time. Companion, friends. These were the important words in this lesson with their meanings. But children, I want you all to read the lesson at least twice so that you can enjoy the story. Love you all. May God bless you. Thank you.